Hi everyone, it's the Wealth Alchemist checking in from my hometown of Scappoose, Oregon in 100-degree weather. Scappoose is about 25 miles north of Portland, Oregon, and we are winding down our 3-week trip and about ready to head back to Zurich. Thus, it has been a little quiet on the social media feed as I was catching up after a very long break from COVID with lots of family and friends. Much needed family time has been happening. It wasn't an easy trip to pull off, but we managed to visit my sister and her family in Texas, including taking the family and, most importantly, my son Max to the Johnson Space Center, which was pretty epic. We then headed north to Bismarck, North Dakota, and embraced our inner Midwestern cowboy and spent some absolutely priceless time with my 97-year-old grandmother and her extended family. We topped it all off with a nice trip to Portland to see my family and friends, lifelong friends, in the Portland region as I sort of kick off this 50th year of celebrating, and it's just the beginning. While driving from Dallas to Houston on our way to the Space Center, I heard a statistic on a radio show that took me back to around about the age of 13, and that topic is back to school spending. Back to school this time of year can elicit both excitement and fear in kids and their parents. The statistic I heard was about a recent poll of 2,000 American parents with school-aged children. It projected, based on these discussions, back to school spending for each child is expected to be up 19% to $843 per child. Of the ranking of where they expected to spend the money, about 70% of that is expected to be going on clothing. Having been raised by a single mom, I remember how stressed out this time of year was for my mom, and I guess also for me, sort of wanting to have the things that the other kids were getting and not really being able to have it because we couldn't afford it. Since all of my children were born in Europe, this number, $843, really startled me. It's not such a big commercial thing in Europe. We have some of it, but it's nowhere near the monstrosity of advertising and stress that I find here in the U.S. It got me thinking about how complicitly and sheepishly we agree to part with some serious money simply because the retail industry has told us our children need an entirely new wardrobe in the month of September. This is the exact type of blind spending that keeps people out of wealth and often entrenched in debt. And I'm no stranger to that. And my upbringing, we also experienced that, and many of my friends' families experienced this. Why is it so easy? Because naturally you want your children to be happy. We want them to feel good about themselves in many different ways, and fashion being one of the big ways that children often feel like they can fit in. But what message are we really sending? Spend extravagantly on clothes, no matter the need, simply because your school year is starting? The more I thought about it, the more upset I became. We're setting our kids up to fail. They may not do what we say, but they most certainly will do what we do. They'll develop the same unconscious bias that this type of herd spending is not an option, but a necessity. And I kind of think that's bullshit. Do all of our children really all outgrow their shoes, their clothes, even their backpacks every September? No, it's absurd. Why do our children need an entirely new wardrobe to go back to school? The world is already suffering from fast fashion that gets tossed into landfills at a shocking rate. The dye used in many of our clothes gets into the water systems, and the intensive amount of water needed to grow cotton is simply not sustainable. It takes 5,000 gallons, 20,000 liters of water to yield 2.2 pounds or 1 kilogram of cotton. And what does that get you? One t-shirt and one pair of jeans. We are seeing climate change around us in absurd examples, one of it being over 100 degrees in Portland, Oregon, on the regular. From a wealth perspective, we are teaching them that new clothes are a priority over wealth creation in many instances. So, the Wealth Alchemist has a few ideas for you to both save some money as well as use this as a teachable moment on investing and maybe even entrepreneurship. So, tip 1, consider doing a clothes swap with all of the kids in your child's age and size ranges. Make it a fun affair, perhaps bake something together and ask all the other families to contribute as well. Keep it COVID approved, do it in the garden. You could even add books and school supplies to this list. And even if you have kids going off to university, maybe there's some things you can exchange there that they might need. Not all kids use up their school supplies quickly. Some children are very careful and take great care of their backpacks, their gym clothes, their soccer and their football cleats. So consider asking your children to arrange this, and you can help them. Another thing that might be nice is to ask them to set aside 1 or 2 or 3 items to just give away to a family that you know that child or that teenager would really, really appreciate it, and show your kids how to be a little bit charitable as well. That's just a side tip to the first one. It's a great opportunity to teach them about helping others and not expecting anything back in return, which we oftentimes anyway feel good about ourselves when we help others. So that's just a side little tip. Tip number 2, organize a back-to-school clothing sale with a few other families. Get your children involved in pricing the items, marketing their sale, work with them on displays and even their selling techniques, and perhaps make a deal with them that for every X amount that they sell, you will contribute an X amount to an investment account. Just a thought. Tip number 3, sit down with them to set a back-to-school budget. Ask them what they really think they need. 1 to 2 items that they also really want, and give them an incentive to perhaps limit their spending to an amount that is well within your budget, and then incentivize them with putting some of the money saved again into perhaps an investment account, and get them involved and excited in what this could potentially reap for them down the road. Tip number 4, take them and maybe a few close friends to a secondhand shop. I promise you, you can have a ton of fun at these places. There are so many cool shops popping up that you can find some amazing items for all fashion styles. Again, think about incentivizing them. If they limit their budget to X amount, you'll contribute X amount to an investment account. So maybe if they can find 5 of their items in that secondhand shop that they really like, they've picked them out, and they've saved $150 from the budget, then talk to them about putting that into their investment account. Tip number 5, we've got tips on tips on tips. Consider putting together a group chat. We do this a lot in Switzerland via WhatsApp, and it's quite useful if you do it in a region where kind of everybody lives, and you can pick a topic, for instance, teen clothing, and then everybody can invite other people to the group chat, and someone will say, okay, here's a pair of Air Force, good shape, size 8, $25. And you can have your teens join the chat group, and they can get involved in actually putting their clothes up for sale as well, and monetizing their wardrobe. And of course, it gets upcycled and it doesn't get thrown away or tossed somewhere in a corner, never to be used again. It's a really great life lesson as well for them to start taking care of some of those expensive clothing items that you've bought for them. So that is a really powerful way to teach them about monetization and how some of these shows, Cash in the Attic, come about. You can have cash in your wardrobe and save the planet and use some of that savings to invest for your future. So in short, get your kids involved in the budgeting and the prioritizing of the items that you think they really need, as well as a few things that they want, and use the savings from some of these tips to start them an investment account. Encourage them to spend, as an example, $300, I don't know what your budget is, but that's an example, on their back to school items. But using the following tips, let's say the value is close to $800, and then you invest the difference. So, using a little bit of math and a nice website which calculates return and interest, if you put $300 into an investment account over 10 years at an average annual growth rate of 7.5%, this would turn into $618. That's without adding a single extra cent. And 7.5% is very achievable. It's the long-term 80-plus year average annual growth rate of the S&P 500. Now, say that instead of just putting in that $300, let's say that you saved from your back-to-school shopping, you put, or they put, $25 a month in. That same growth rate of 7.5%, 10-year time frame, will now yield them $4,862. So that shows them just how powerful $25 a month can be. For most of our teens, that's a couple trips to Starbucks these days, and you know that they're spending that money there. So think about that. Another idea is that you can, if you've got any kids in the house that are social media posters, you can get them to do a video on all of the money that they're saving and the great things that they've found at some of these secondhand shops. I took my whole family on more than one occasion to the Buffalo Exchange in Portland, Oregon, and we found some amazing deals. These glasses being one of them. I found a really cute top that you'll see me wearing in some of my posts in the future, $10. And my deal of the day was a Ralph Lauren 3/4 Mac rain jacket in pristine condition, which was being sold for $50, but they were having an extra discount, and I got it for about $33. So those are just some of my finds I found at the Buffalo Exchange in Portland on Burnside, and if you're an Oregonian, you can check that out. But check out your neighborhood, see if there's some of these cool shops there, take your kids, see how much money you can save, and get them involved in investing in their long-term future, and don't get so stressed out about back-to-school shopping. Set a budget with them, let them know what's reasonable, and if there's something really important on the list that you can't yet afford, maybe you say, look, in the next couple months we can revisit that. You can do some babysitting, you can contribute to that item. Wishing you all the best. I'm going to enjoy my last few days in Oregon, and I will see everybody back here next week.